Hello, world. I am Kenzie Dodds, and I appreciate you taking the time to check this out. What I'm going to be talking about is the October free open source software bash. This is something that Randall is kind of put on, and Bobby's going to be kind of helping with this one in particular. So Angular formally is the focus for October. And so what I'm going to talk about is just how you can get involved in contributing. And so if it's not October 24th, it's okay. Hopefully this video is still useful and you can still contribute to Angular formally. But this is specific to this event. So Angular formally, if you don't know, it's a forms library for Angular, and it's used by a lot of developers, and I think it's really useful. So basically, I have a few needs for the repository, and they're listed here. And so we'll go through some of these really quick, and I'll go through how you can set up your system with the current way that Formally is set up, and hopefully this is helpful to you. So first, investigate an Angular 2 version. I haven't had time to go into saying about Angular 2. And so if you're really ambitious and want to get into Angular 2, then that's something that you can investigate. The only thing that I would hope is that the form configuration can be the same for Angular 1 and Angular 2. How you set up types and different things like that can be totally different. I'm not as concerned about that. I'm mostly concerned about making sure that the configuration doesn't change or only changes minimally. So beyond that, you have full reigns. I don't care what you do. So another thing is test coverage. So we have the Angular formally repo, but then if we go to the formally.js org, any of these repositories, almost any of them, could potentially use a template upgrade, or sorry, not a template upgrade, a test upgrade. And so particularly the formally templates bootstrap, yeah, this could definitely use some help. So anyway, yeah, if you're interested in adding tests, that would be really helpful as well. And the formally core is at like 95%. So there are a couple of places that you could add test coverage. And actually, if you go to the repo, there's a badge for coverage. Let's see. Yeah, you jump into that, and that will show you in the settings here, suggestions. And this will show you the biggest bang for the buck as far as changes, or if we were to cover these lines, we would increase coverage by this much. And so that's, yeah, if you're interested in adding code coverage, that's a good place to look. So then performance bottlenecks is huge. This is also for more ambitious contributors. There's an issue that you can search around for that talks about performance issues with Angular formally for the initial render time, and there's some benchmark, quote unquote benchmarks in there that you can look at. And so even like setting up legitimate benchmarks would be really helpful for that, even if you don't actually solve the problem. And then we have a handful of existing issues, and I've tried to label these properly. And so if it's a breaking change, then I'll want you to, obviously all these will be done in a pull request, but I won't actually, I would prefer it if there's a way that we can implement this in a non-breaking way, so that people can take advantage of the new API without breaking the old API, and then we can go and remove the extra code when it's time to push a new major release. If that's not possible, that's okay. I think that might not really be possible for form here. But yeah, that could be handy. So breaking changes are definitely a little more difficult. There are a couple of, or I think there's just one easy one. The rest of them are medium difficulty. But yeah, feel free to knock yourself out on anything that it says intent to implement. Those are the ones that I've decided, yeah, let's bring that in. So these bugs in particular, I'd really like to get resolved. I think this one especially would be really helpful. So then, if you're not like in the mode where you can contribute a lot of code, then actually like learning about Angular formally and writing blog posts or tutorials, improving docs, or recording screencasts would be really helpful. So for documentation, if you go to the website and click on the documentation link, it's going to take you to a readme.io site. And here, if you just jump to the documentation link here, there's a edit this page at the top of all the pages. And so if you see a typo, or here you'll see some of these have an example and a lesson. Some of them don't, but maybe there's an example or a lesson that kind of talk about these concepts. For sure, hide expression I think has one. Then you can click edit this page, and you need to log in and sign up and stuff, but then you can go in and make some changes, and I'll get an email that will inform me that you made the suggestions, and I can merge those. So updating documentation is pretty easy, and you just need to sign up for an account. Yeah, writing blog posts and tutorials are totally awesome. You'll see actually on the documentation here under tips, I have a list of blog articles, and I'd love to add more links in there. And screencasts are cool too. And then finally, one of the biggest things that Formally needs, I think, is plugins to make it easier for people to adopt for their more common use cases. And so right now, the Angular Formally website is just like, oh, actually, and you know what? Another thing I just thought of is this whole wall of text, like this whole introduction stuff, totally needs to be rewritten. So if somebody wants to like make this a little more concise, we don't have to put all of this detail in here. Just make something a little bit more concise. I think there's actually an issue for that on the website here. Bunch of new example requests, but then there's this improve homepage and improve intro example. So if you want to contribute to those, that would also be really helpful. And while I'm here, creating examples would also be a very helpful thing. So if you go through some of these and create an example for any of these, then you can add an example to the website by going to the contributing MD, and it will explain the steps that you need to take to create an example. That's also very easy. So those are a couple of things, but as far as plugins go, like I said, all of these are examples, and they've grown pretty significantly. And many of these, especially like the integrations and yeah, some of the other ones, and advanced and very advanced, some of these could all be turned into a plugin to make it easier. For example, like we could take the UI mask example here, and all that this is really doing is it adds a run function where you set a type called masked input. And so basically you copy this, you create your own module, you add a run function, you put it in a IFI, an immediately invoked function, stick that in a script file, and put that up on a GitHub repo. And that's pretty much all that needs to happen for this particular example. And so, yeah, I definitely would love to see some people creating plugins for some of these really useful examples, particularly if it's something that you're actually doing in your app. And you can ultimately like depend on your personal plugin in your application. That is probably the best use case. So yeah, ng messages integration, repeating sections, Angular material, JSON schema support would actually be really nice. And I think we have several people who aren't adopting formally because we don't have this, so that would be handy. Some more types, and then if you look at the other ideas, this takes you to a plugin page that where I put the plugins and then some ideas here. So to facilitate making sure that we're not like overlapping, I created a spreadsheet, and so that's linked right here. If you go to this spreadsheet, it'll have some of those examples, and then you can go to the issue And if there is no issue, then create one on the repo. And if there is no repo, create it on the Angular Formally repo, and we can talk about it. And basically all that I want is for you to create a GitHub repo yourself and create the library. And if it like becomes a real thing and it's actually being published and stuff, then I'll add you to the Angular Formally collaborators, and we'll bring the module or the repo into the Formally JS org, and it can be like officially stamped. If you want to. If you want to leave it in your own stuff, that's cool too, and I'll still link to you. So those are a couple of things that you can do. So yeah, right now, or I'm going to actually cut this off and I'm going to make another video that demonstrates how you set up the repo locally so you can start contributing. So thank you for contributing to Angular Formally. I really appreciate it, and I hope that you enjoy it. Thank you.